SJ. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Estongo, Gary Fife, Jaho Jeff Gedas.
Jessica McBride, Jaho Jeff Gedas.
Mvskoke Radio, Mabo Hedjita. Welcome to our program here today on this fine fall afternoon, morning, I'd say. Whoa, I'm a little ahead of myself here. Jessica, straighten me out here. How are you doing today? Welcome back. Glad to have you join us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Gary.
On our today's program, we're going to be looking at Native Oklahoma magazine. I don't know if any of our listeners have ever seen it, but it's a magazine trying to cover all the Native cultures and issues and people around the state of Oklahoma. And also in our second portion of the program, Jessica and I will be speaking with Michael Coon about the effect of PTSDs on families. So it goes far beyond just the veterans who've experienced this sort of thing. We've had a busy week, haven't we?
Oh, busy. Busy couple of weeks, Gary.
Right. We're still here, and contrary to rumors, we're not dismissed. We're still here, and we're reaffirming our dedication to our principles of good journalism, and hopefully we'll see some wonderful results and hope that our readers of Muscogee Nation News and viewers of Native News Today and listeners to our program will enjoy what we're able to do for them and the freedom that we are looking forward to. Any thoughts there?
No, not really. You know, just as a journalist, we're here to be fair and balanced and to tell the truth. And that's what we're here to do. Right,
but it does take a toll. I mean, I've had all the energy sucked out of me for a couple of weeks here, as we've been watching the law go through our council, and then the affirmation process, and scramble to find board members, and looking ahead to getting a new director in place and hired. So, I know you've had a lot to do with this, and have been expending all kinds of energy for this thing.
Yeah, it's been an interesting process and a lot of hard work, but we'll get there and everything will be for the best, I think.
Right. Well, enough of that. I'm sure our listeners will hear more of that later on as we go through the year. But let's get to today's subject. Sitting in with us this morning is Adam Proctor. He is the co-editor of Native Oklahoma magazine. Welcome, Adam. We appreciate you coming down and joining us this morning.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. Thank you.
First of all, I guess for our listeners, why don't you give us a quick capsule of who you are?
Well, again, I'm Adam Proctor, originally from Stillwell, Oklahoma. I'm enrolled with the United Keetoowah Band, but I'm also Muscogee Creek and absentee Shawnee. And my mom's side is all Shawnee and Creek, and my dad's side we're all Cherokee from Stillwell. So, being in Creek country, I get a lot of, "Are you related to so and so down here in Holdenville or Wetumpka?" And no, I'm the Proctors from Cherokee, Cherokee country. So
yeah, we get a lot of travelers through here. And,
so I tell them there's two sets of Proctors. There's Creek Proctors, there's Cherokee Proctors, but you know.
Yeah, we always get somebody. Oh, are you related to so and so?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you are co-editor of Native Oklahoma magazine, and I understand Lisa Snell, who was scheduled to join us, is under the weather.
Yes.
And this is beautiful weather to be under, but
she had called yesterday and said that she's got the flu or vertigo or some kind of allergies, I guess. So she couldn't make it today. So hope she's listening.
Yeah, and our best wishes to you, Lisa. We hope you have a quick recovery. In the meantime, let's turn to this magazine now. For folks who have been around Indian country a bit, you might have run across an issue or two of it here and there. I guess, let's get a description. How would you describe Native Oklahoma magazine?
Well, it's an idea that we started a few years ago, and Elisa actually tried to start this 4 or 5 years ago with the magazine, and it really didn't take off as much. Beginning, if you know Lisa, she's a one-man show with Native American Times. So doing a newspaper and then trying to do a magazine at the same time really wasn't, kosher for her as far as time-wise goes.
And have a life at the same time.
And so I was, at the time, I was the state board president for the American Indian Chamber of Commerce, and I've been on the board for 6 years. And there was really nothing that I saw as far as state goes that covered the content like it should as far as Native American community goes in the state of Oklahoma. Nothing on tourism, nothing on politics, or nothing on economic development or anything inside the community for outside of what Native American Times was doing as a newspaper. But as a magazine, we knew it started out as an idea for cultural tourism, and we knew there was nothing else out there that was showing that. We see the other magazines that have an article or a section of that in a magazine, but it's only on an annual basis, nothing monthly. And so we decided, well, it was a good time to start that, So we started out with cultural tourism, in the magazine, and just citing all the events, all the powwows throughout the year, all the dances that was going on in Indian country as far as Comanche Fair, Ponca Powwow, Creek Fest, Turkey Holiday, things like that. And we could showcase that each month. And also that, we're always getting articles and press releases of artists, entertainers that are wanting to promote, their work. And so it was a good idea to showcase we realized we had a lot of Oklahoma artists, a lot of Oklahoma entertainers. And now a lot of the entertainers are on a national level that are from Oklahoma. And there was really not an outlet for them to get the exposure that they needed. And so it was an idea to put on the cover each month a local artist from Oklahoma to get them the exposure they needed. And so guys like Tim Mvskoke, Matt Bearden, Steve McGrounds, Mallory Taylor, these guys that are right here, and we wanted to make sure that everybody knew who they were, knew their work. Entertainers like, of course, everybody knows Lightfoot, Sunstar from Oklahoma City, Brian Frejo, there's Jimmy Johnson, there's Gibson Jr. There's a lot of country entertainers, a lot of Oklahoma entertainers that are out there that are not getting the exposure that, we want them to give. So it was a good outlet to do that.
Well, let me ask you this, the mortality rate for Native publications is notoriously high. It's expensive to do, and sometimes, the content is difficult to come by, and your audience may not be there, for whatever reason, just out of ignorance or whatever else, or they don't want to drop $250 for a magazine, something like that. For whatever reason, that's a tough choice for you and Lisa and your crew to have to make. And what, I guess, I don't want to use the word possessed, but what possessed you to go ahead and try this venture?
Well, the newspaper was going to the Native communities. The magazine, we wanted to make sure it went out to the general public, and we wanted to make sure that people that drove through Oklahoma got to had a chance to see something, whether it was through the hotel they stayed in or the casino they went to or a travel plaza they picked up at, to see something that they can go to while they're in Oklahoma or passing through. And a lot of people outside of Oklahoma really don't have a glimpse or an idea or even a true story of what the history that we have here in Oklahoma. And so we wanted to expose a little bit of that to them and make sure to entice them to attend one of those events while they're here. So we always had calls coming in from outsiders outside of Oklahoma, coming through here this month. What do you have this weekend or that weekend that we can go see? So we give them a list. But it got to where the calls were more and more frequent, and it was a good idea to put that in the magazine and put that in the general public because people wanted to see that. But we also wanted to make sure that if we're going to tell a story on tribal history, we want to make sure we told it from our perspective, not from an encyclopedia or some other professor's point of view. So we wanted to make sure that they heard it from the original. But there was a lot of stories like that we wanted to make sure that, people outside of Oklahoma knew. And now you see, I noticed this past year going to a lot of the cultural events and tribal events that there's a lot more outsiders than there are locals that go to these. And so it's a good thing because our magazine, like I said, it is to the general public, but I've noticed that the shelf life of our magazine is only 2 weeks, even though it's a monthly magazine. So we know that it's being picked up somewhere, across central and eastern Oklahoma. And there's a lot of people reading it. And we still get calls from back east. The European Convention Tourism invites us every year to attend their event in Berlin because they want to see something from here, from native Oklahoma. And so it was just a nice fit to appease them, to let them know that there is culture here, there is history, and expose all 39 tribes on their culture and their traditions. Not so much to where we understand, we respect their ceremonies, that we know we can't expose that, but as far as everything else outside of that, that's what we want to make sure that they heard and saw.
Well, your strategy, obviously, I think, is working. Mm-hmm. And part of your plan is to have this bright, splashy, colorful cover mm-hmm. to attract the eyes, and then a variety of articles mm-hmm. Covering quite a span. What do you look for in first creating a cover and then the selection of materials that you choose to publish?
Usually it goes for the season, what particular is going on in that part of the year. We want to, kind of cater to that season, and with the history, the art, if it fits that area, or not area, but culture for the season, the stories, the history, things that happen in that month or in that time area that we can report or reissue articles. We want to make sure that it's fitting that issue for that month.
So beginning in the summer, there's going to be a lot of powwow kind of stuff? Et cetera, et cetera?
In March, we always put out an annual powwow guide because, it starts the season in March. We're Denver March powwow, and it goes from there. And it really picks up, but March, is spring, so we want to show something for that era. As far as history goes, as far as culture goes, the spring meetings, what Osages do, what the Caddos do in the spring, what we do as Shawnees in the spring for our bread dances. We want to make sure that, there's an article or something that lets people know that, this is what we're doing this time of the year.
Now, this would also be, that time of year would also be, I guess, the start of the art show season. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you get a lot of those.
Yeah, a lot of art markets going on. It really picks up after March, so April, May, really when you get into the summer season, and it's really hard for us sometimes because there's so much going on, we're not able to cover everything. But we want to make sure we do that, if not for that month, but for at least for that quarter of the season.
Well, I think it's significant that you're troubled with an abundance of material rather than a scarcity. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that's happening? Are more of our people and culture just being recognized, or are we out there pushing it, getting it, the pride in our culture out there? Are we getting more media savvy? What do you think?
It's you picked up on this earlier, and I was listening. We started out in the newspaper as a hard news, publication, and it was mainly politics, mainly things that was current. And we noticed in a lot of the tribes, whether it was good or bad, and most of it wasn't good, was starting to take effect in our business for the publication. So we had to make sure there was a fine line to report the current events and politics, but also not, I guess, hurt our revenue at the same time.
Yeah, that is a fine line.
And so we kind of, once we backed up from the politics side, we understood that there's a lot more to be told outside of politics. There's a lot more that we can cover that is being current and that aren't being told. And once we took that perspective, we all kind of, I guess, zoomed out a little bit and saw what else that we were missing that we can report. And so we still try to do the hard news on the newspaper and the website, but there's still a lot to cover, and that's the good thing about being a publication. You're never going to run out of content because there's always fresh, even though it's the same events year in, year out, but there's always something new in each event each year. So
the range of material you do is incredible. Like I'm looking at a thing I pulled from your website, and one of the headlines I see is "Learning to Stomp," and then you've got a lot of powwow-oriented material. The Plains tribes and the southeastern tribes. Is it difficult trying to cover all those cultures, the 39 tribes within our state? I mean, they're so different, and some tribes are huge, like the Cherokees and our own Muscogee, and then there are the little ones down there too.
Yeah, and we understood that because we know the big three, Cherokee Creek, Choctaws, the Chickasaws, the big four, really. There's always something going on, and a lot of people outside of Oklahoma know the histories of those 4 tribes or 5 tribes, the 5 civilized tribes, but what they don't know is the other tribes that you mentioned, and so we're kind of underdogish for the smaller tribes because we know they have much more history than what's being put out there, and we want to make sure that their stories are getting told as well. There's not a lot of people know about the Wyandots or the Tonkawas and their scalp dances, or even the Shawnees with the bread dance or the war dances in the summertime. There's not a lot of people know about that. And we want to cover those. And each tribe too has a lot of history with their leaders. With Ponkas, or again with the Shawnees or the Comanches. They don't know about the history of who they were and what they stood for. And those are the kind of stories we won't put out there as far as history goes. But culture, it goes hand in hand, I think, in some cases. So, because their actions and their motives were culturally based with their traditions.
Now, you mentioned culture here, and I think one of the challenges we have in Native journalism is when we do our culture, when we cover our culture, how far do we go? We will, for instance, here with Muscogee people, we will go so far getting close to, say, a stomp dance or a ceremony, but we know that there is a border, there's a line we don't cross. Is it difficult for your publication to observe those vastly different kinds of cultural taboos, if we will?
Well, no, on our end, we understand that, but for the reader's sake, for the non-native that's coming through Oklahoma, we really don't have to touch too far on that. We just, because we understand where we're coming from, but for the reader's sake, we want them to know it's there, but, we're not going to expose them to the whole, the whole ceremonial style.
Yeah, you may not be able to go home if you do that.
Yeah, because, it's something, you look at the time basis for someone that's traveling through Oklahoma, they're only allotted so many time or hours to be in Oklahoma, whether it's a couple of days or just for a day trip. But while they're here and they have downtime, where can they go? So just to send them that way and show them what's going on that particular weekend, and not really delve too deep into it is plenty enough for them.
Why do you think it's important to reach out to the non-native readers? I understand, for tourism's sake, but why reach out to them and why target them?
It's the curiosity that a lot of non-natives have, and it's the stories that aren't being told in history books or being told now on Facebook. You look on Facebook, there's a lot of hobbyists out there, and we understand their heart and their passion. But we also understand that if you really like this, if you really want to, understand what we're doing here, then you need to come to where it's really being done the right way. But we're not going to delve into, there's certain ceremonies that can't be told, can't be seen, but there are also a lot that can be, and those are the ones we want to show you to. But the curiosity factor gets a lot of them in hearing the wrong story or hearing a story, not hearing the full story of what happened. In Indian country, the Oklahoma Land Run, or the Trail of Tears, or the death marches that most of these tribes had, is not being told. And to understand that and to share it from our perspective, hopefully it gets them to understand and respect it more than who we are, than what we've done, and what we've gone through to be where we're at today.
Are there things that you will turn down, will refuse to cover? You mentioned hobbyists, and for some people that sort of raises the hair on the back of their neck.
Mm-hmm.
And their phrase we used to have, wannabes,
Mm-hmm.
and those out-and-out frauds. Will you not cover their events, and how would you detect something like that?
We detect it, but again, our focus is Indian culture for Oklahoma. We want to make sure that people understand that and understand it and respect it, and actually attend to some of these things so they get a better feeling of where we're coming from. If we can't show that, then it's hard to for us to go and talk to someone non-native that's doing their own events and not doing it the right way, because it's disrespecting ourselves.
As you look at a schedule of events for the year, do you have like a staff that you assign to different things, or is it you and Lisa essentially?
Yeah, we've been doing this for so long. We got it streamlined down to we know what to look for at a particular time of the year. We know who to talk to. There's really not a lot, discussion on what we can do and can't do, because we're pretty much on the same page of what to look for.
Well, say for example, we take a topic like wild onion dinners.
Mm-hmm.
How would you plan to cover something like that?
The same way we plan to cover powwows, the etiquette, how they're dressed, what to look for, and I know a lot of old ladies back home that don't want to give out their secrets on wild onions, so we just give out a little bit.
No, I'm not going to tell you where I get my onions.
Right. No one wants to know that.
I'll go to my grave with that secret.
Yeah. But it's the same etiquette, powwow etiquette. Again, a lot of people don't understand what the difference between the fancy dancer, the way he's dressed, from a straight dancer, and there's still a lot of kids today in our schools that don't understand a war song from a round dance song, or even a stomp dance song, So it just re-educating, Again, like I said, we're never going to run out of content, because even the ones that do know are still educating the younger ones that don't know, and getting them to understand that.
Well, you mentioned powwows, which is a huge subject. And for people who aren't powwow people, they have to understand there is quite a rigid etiquette involving a powwow. It's like who can be in an arena, how when do you wear a certain outfit, or what happens when a certain mistake or problem comes up. Does that restrict you in what you can do, or what you choose to do?
No, not at all, because we want them to understand that. We want the reader to know what he can and can't do if he goes to those events, and that's the reason why we do the etiquette page every year for the guide, because we still get folks that don't understand. But to get them to educate on that and the protocol, we know there's order in there. We know there's certain things that have to happen. There's certain protocols that have to happen, but not to get them to understand it, or really get them to understand it, but not to get them to be a part of that, so they can just, appreciate that from a spectator point of view.
Mm-hmm. With all the cultural and event coverage that you guys do, how do you find a way to keep it fresh, to keep it renewed and interesting?
It's the stories in the events. It's the people in the events. It's the little things that we look for, because we know, like I said, those events are annual, and we know that's going to be retold every year. But there's always something in there that's different from last year that we want to make sure that people know and understand. There's people in there that are in the background scenes that we want to make sure that they're getting told and understand who they are. There's dancers out there. There's dancers been around for a long time, and there's dancers that are coming up that people are starting to recognize. We want to make sure that people know who they are.
Well, we've talked a lot about the challenges of putting your magazine out. What's the fun part? Now, before you jump into it, I saw a big grin on your face. The fun part, like, putting it together or making it happen, seeing people afterward. Or are there certain stories that have struck you as just being a pleasure to do? I know other journalists run across those occasionally where you just have a good time and a good feeling after covering something.
It's the gratitude with her, with Lisa. She's real cultural, and she wants to get stories out. Me on my side, I'm more of a historian. I like to hear the true story or the real story, what really happened. Not a lot of people know about the story about the Osages and the Kiowas in the early 1900s and the fight they had, and it's still documented down there in Fort Sill in the museum, where they had the heads in the buckets in the front of their teepees. You talk to them today, and their stories are kind of similar but different because they had a different side to it. The reason why they fought and the reason why they weren't there when the fight happened. So you listen to both sides, you're like, okay, but not a lot of people know that. And the history part for me is the gratitude of being retold and told the right way and told from our point of view, but the Native point of view. It's just the gratitude and people enjoying that.
And the humorous part. I mean, you've got to have run across something that was just outrageously funny that you had to deal with.
We've had some cartoonists, and we've looked at a lot of them that we want to put in there, and the consistency for us was in the beginning good. I mean, it was right on, but then it goes somewhere down the road, and it takes a dirt road, to the right or to the left, and so we kind of have to hold off on that.
Sometimes those are a dead end too.
Yeah.
I've actually seen a lot of publications that had cartoonists that were just really, really amazing. And as you say, they just sort of peter out, whether it's the ideas or the execution and the artwork or the thinking that a whole lot of people may be reading this or looking at this cartoon and they don't know where Church Rock is or something like that. They don't care. Whereas, say, a Navajo person might find this outrageously funny and no one else does. So it just kind of goes clunk. Do you see a lot of things in the future that you'll be looking to cover or new directions where you'll be expanding? And I'm sure that Lisa sent a bunch of things along for you to mention.
Like I said, we started out the magazine as a cultural tourism magazine, and since then it's evolved into more of I would say like a lifestyle, Native people lifestyle magazine, because now the issues are getting more broader than just cultural and tourism. The people want to read more outside of that, so we're talking more on a current level for a magazine. It's more topics to discuss: business, community, health, education, sports and entertainment. Are always in the mix, but it's evolving to more of a deeper magazine, I think, and that we'll see in the future.
Well, what you want to do, I think, is avoid the stereotypes of beads and feathers and beautiful powwow photos, but there's no depth to it. I think is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, and in my years on the chamber, we had a lot of businesses that came in with names that you knew that it meant a lot to them, but names like Morning Dove Construction or One Feather, graphic design, and barely have enough quantum to be a tribal member from any tribe, and we, as a board member, as board president at the time, we understood that, respected it, but we wanted to make sure that look at the full bloods or the Native companies out here. Look at their titles, of their names, of their companies. There's nothing that's, we want to make sure we're respected for who we are, what we do as a business person, whether it's engineering or architect or anything like that the name doesn't hinder it.
Do those kinds of sponsorships and support keep you afloat? I mean, are you making money with the ads, so to speak?
Well, the newspaper's been going for 15 years. The magazine now, we're in our third year, and it's growing. So we understand the need for it. We know there's a reader base out there for it, even in the non-native communities. And so the sponsors will grow.
All right. Now, we've mentioned the magazine, this last half hour.
Mm-hmm.
Where can you find it? I know that it's available in so many places,
Mm-hmm.
but for folks here in Okmulgee, for instance, where would they run across a copy of Native Oklahoma?
Here in Okmulgee, you would find it at the casinos, at the hotels, at the travel plazas, and they don't last long.
Good.
From what I noticed, they're there. I put them out first of the month, and they're gone a week later.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but also on our website, nativeoklahoma.us, you can find them and download a copy there. You mentioned the sponsors and the advertisers. Everything we have in the magazine is all native-owned companies.
Yeah, you do a little vetting process there?
Yeah, no, and it just, again, if we're going to promote native artists and entertainers, we want to make sure our native businesses are getting heard too and seen. And so our store in Tahlequah, we have a lot of native products in our store, from a lot of T-shirts, sweatshirts, but also, the Tonka bars, the Bedray chocolates that the Chickasaws have. Mm-hmm. And so we have a lot of native-owned or tribal-owned products that we want to promote as well. So.
Okay. All right. Speaking of promotions, is there any last word you'd like to leave with our listeners about your magazine or something you might have coming up?
For the guys that have already read and know our magazine, we thank you, Mado. We're going to keep going, and we're going to keep pushing our story and make the elders proud that the stories are being told right, and the traditions and the cultures are being heard and promoted, and just keep looking for us, and we'll continue to be out there.
Okay. Well, that'll wrap it up then with speaking with Adam Proctor of Native Oklahoma Magazine. He's a co-editor, and we appreciate your time. And Lisa, get well. We want you to get well.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to take a break here, and we'll be back with Michael Coon and talk about the subject of PTSD in his family. So please stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio.
Nearly 22 million women and girls and nearly 1.6 million men and boys have been raped in their lifetime, probably by someone they know. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, confidential support is only a phone call away. Contact the Muscogee Creek Nation Family Violence Prevention Program at 918-732-7869 and ask to speak to an advocate. Services are free and open to the general public.
Who am I? Am I Indian? Just 'cause I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape, but then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am, and I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio here on 1240 The Brew. And we'll be looking at the subject of the post-traumatic stress disorder. We have Michael Coon joining us here in the studio. Thank you, sir, for coming down. We appreciate you making some time for us.
Thank you, Gary. Glad to be here.
And I'm going to let Jessica take the lead here, but I'll be jumping in from time to time with some questions, so take it away.
Well, as an Army veteran, Michael, how has post-traumatic stress disorder affected your family?
Well, it's taken the loss of my son, being a third generation of our family, of 3 generations of regular Army. My father was, of course, in World War II, even before post-stress PTSD was even introduced. A lot of the World War II veterans had it, but they didn't diagnose it back then. My father had it from not having no nerves, being as a POW for 3.5 years, but the VA never certified that that's what these veterans had, and I think it was carried on down. And then as you go into the military yourself, the different situations that you're put in the military, you eventually get stressed, like being myself being a Army Airborne paratrooper and stuff, and having to deal with the different aircraft that you're in, and that you don't know if that will be your final jump, or will you be able to see another jump. So I think it's just the way that you're trained and everything. And once that in his part, as far as being an infantryman like his grandfather, I think that it helps the veterans better understand of what they dealt with in their time, and then what the time is now. And I think it's with the firefights and of all the loss of the bodies and stuff, that it's hard to come back after being in a hostile environment like that, to come back to civilization and then thinking that they can just turn it off and start coping with society again. But I think that's the problem that we see when they come back, and we don't quite understand what they're feeling and the demons that are inside them and everything. I know when my son came back, I tried to better understand him as what he went through, and I could imagine what he went through over there in Afghanistan and Iraq. But still, you can only just go so far, because it's inside them, and it's not inside us. That you can get all the help that you want, but if it's not the right fit, then there's not too much that you can do. You just have to just rely on the faith and prayers for him to get him through that.
How did you know that your son was suffering from PTSD? What clues did you find?
I just noticed that when he came back, that there was more drinking alcohol, there was less sleep. He was always moving around all the time. He just couldn't get settled in. Like, I would just like for him just to sit at the table and sit and visit, but it was like he was fidgety all the time. And then if I tell him to go down and get some rest and take a nap or something, he would lay down for like 15-20 minutes and take a power nap, and then that would be it. Then he'd be back up again. And that's the way they kind of revived themselves to get through this. But still, it's still not enough for them. That I think that VA use them too much like a guinea pig, I think, and they try all these different drugs on them. And they go through all these different medications to these young veterans, and they said, well, that didn't work, let's try something else. And after you go through a certain series of different options and they don't seem to work, then I think a lot of these veterans say, well, I'll bite the bullet. It's just like I can't go on anymore. There's no cure, but there is a cure out there. But they just have to better research it and see what is going on with these young soldiers that come back, because it's a shame that that at such a young age, and they're protecting our freedom and everything, that we should give back to them what their despair and what they're going through. And I think that's the reason why we need to step up and help our young soldiers, even our older soldiers. It doesn't matter what age you are to get this PTSD. It comes back in all ages and forms. So it's just a shame that that we can't find the cure for this to keep this suicide. I mean, we're losing 22 soldiers a day to suicide, and that's more than we lose in the war.
Well, I think you mentioned a cure there, and I'm not sure that medical science can come up with anything, but I think the best cure would be to stop having wars.
I agree. Yeah, that we just need to take care of our own here and quit trying to mess with every other countries and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We need to take care of our own soldiers and stuff here. That's where we need to start. I know that, sure, we're trying to be humane to other countries and everything, but then look at all the homeless vets that we have here that have sacrificed, gave the ultimate sacrifice and stuff, and then now they're out on the streets and homeless, and we're not trying to, and we're bringing all these refugees in and trying to feed them and clothe them, and what are we doing for the veterans? We're not doing anything for our veterans and stuff.
What do you think needs to be done for the veterans? Either just as a United States citizen or for veterans themselves. How do we help each other?
I think they need to have more support groups. I think more veterans would come out, even from the ones in Vietnam that went. I had a few cousins that were in Vietnam, and they still don't want to talk about what they endured, and the same as my father. But if they had the support group and they had the support like the soldiers get now when they come back, then I think that hopefully there would be a cure for this. But it looks like that the country had turned their backs on the ones for Vietnam. And a lot of my brothers and stuff that served in the military, they feel the same way. They we never got the recognition like the World War II when they won the war. Of course, we didn't win the war, but we gave the ultimate sacrifice. We gave our lives and our buddies and stuff. And still, that's MIAs and POWs. And so I think that's what they need.
How does this particular issue affect other family members? And we've taken a lot of focus, rightfully so, on the veterans themselves. But you mentioned you saw your son come home, and it wasn't the same person. What about the rest of the family? How were they affected by this, by the PTSD issue with your son?
It affects all the way down to the young ones, even to his sons that are 5 and 6. And even up to his nephews and nieces, that they didn't quite understand why this happened, and I think it affects them. But we grew up in a strong family in faith, with a Christian family and everything, and I think that's what helped our family survive, because we listened to what my mother and my father taught us as we were growing up, and even the boys before they became in their manhood and before they had children and stuff, that she said you always trust in the Lord, and you always keep your faith and prayer. Like my dad would always say, pray much. And I think that's what's kept our family strong, and we just always continue to have that's where we get our strength, and all the support groups around that say we always have support prayers for your family, and I think that helps, because that takes away. I mean, sure, we miss them and everything, but the pain, it takes away the pain when you have the support for your family and everything, that you can continue on and go on.
Now, you've been fairly outspoken about this topic, and for some people, PTSD and suicide are touchy subjects, and they don't really want to go into that. Why do you feel it's important that we discuss this?
Well, I speak at a lot of veterans organizations and stuff around the country, and I think it needs to be put out there, and I just hopefully that this doesn't happen to other families like it did mine. Of course, I'm not the first one that's ever happened to, but I just want to try to hopefully find a cure to make it stop or slow it down, where we don't have this many suicide rates per day. I think that it helps the family, that they know that people are out there trying to promote this, that the Department of Defense needs to go in and starts to step up to the plate as far as what happened to these veterans. These veterans were not like this when they went into the military. This is the way they were trained, and it's hard to turn that switch off once it's been turned on. And so that's the reason why I'm so outspoken about this, because I hate for other mothers and fathers to have to go through of losing a son or a daughter, to the military. When I just came back from Portland, I talked with a veteran that was she was in the Army as a nurse. And her first response was that I have PTSD. I have 4 lovely children, and I live in Montana. And she's from the Blackfeet Nation. And she said that she would rather would want to be back in Afghanistan than be here in the States, because she feels more secure over there, even though she loves her children dearly. That's the place that she thinks she belongs.
Do you think the potential to develop PTSD, do you think that should discourage people from serving in the military?
No, I just think it's for the love of our country and stuff, and for our nation. I know, because of being a Native American warrior, it's a proud heritage that we carry, a tradition that we carry. We're the leading ethnic group that's in the armed forces and stuff, and I think that's the reason why a lot of the Native Americans join the service and stuff, because of their grandfathers and their fathers and their uncles, and it's a proud tradition, and I think they'll still continue going on. They just whatever the consequences are, they're ready to step up to the plate.
Are there resources that you have tapped into to help, whether it's medical or emotional or spiritual, whether it's a church and stomp grounds, ceremony, whatever? Have you been through those types of help and support?
Yeah, I've been getting calls from different survivors of families and stuff that have been going through this PTSD that lost them to suicide. There's another group called TAPS that gets in touch with me, check and see how I'm doing every day. They're just amazed how I can continue to go on and not to be, be crying and feeling sorry for myself. But I told him I wasn't raised that way, and I said, I'm out to help other people. I'm out to show the world that this can be stopped, but you have to speak out. You just can't lay back and say, poor, pitiful me, my son would not want that. He would want me to let it know that we're hurting out here. Tell the story, Dad. Let people know what the veterans are going through. Even when I went to Fort Bliss and I seen all his fellow soldiers, I could see the PTSD in all them young soldiers, how they adapt. And I watched them as they sat at the table as we were sitting. I had 30 soldiers with me that night, and they were all sitting at the table, and you could tell that each one of them had that in their system, because it was the way they interact. When they're by themselves, you can watch the transformation of the loneliness that they get when they're by themselves. And I think that's what happened to my son. As far as when he's with the group, he's fine, but then when they're off on their own by themselves, and that's when a lot of times that's when they commit suicide, is they don't have their buddy there with them or no support. Then that's when all these demons come into their head.
Why do you think that PTSD sufferers have a hard time coming forward and kind of talking about their struggles?
I think the reason, because a lot of them that I talk to is if they go to their commanders and stuff and say that they have PTSD, a lot of them get labeled unfit to serve. And then when they're labeled unfit to serve, well, they're booted out of the service. And then there's no help for them. And then they just become like a lonely wanderer, like a homeless veteran. Like there are so many that are on the streets now. I think if the Army would reclassify them and put them in in a support group, and then when they see fit to go back, it's just like being wounded in combat. When you're unfit to perform, and then you go back and you get healed, and then you put it back in your unit, then that's what they should do with these PTSD boys and stuff. Instead of just kicking them out and say, okay, we're done with you, we don't know how to take care of this, instead of just abandoning them, they should be taking care of it.
Now, let me ask you this one, and forgive me for getting kind of personal here, but have you been through a period where you had to shed the tears to go ahead and cry, get it out of your system, some people might say? Did it do any good to sort of cleanse yourself like that? I mean, to shed those things?
Well, a lot of people ask me that, but with myself, I put my strength in the Lord, and the Lord takes care of me, and He knows the pain and the agony that I go through every day as far as dealing with my son. And the loss of my mother, my father, in a 2-year period, and I lost my son's. My son also lost his mother, and so having to deal with them for issues and stuff, to me, it just makes me stronger, and that I can stand up and be that pillar that my family looks at me and say, he's strong, he can endure, and that's what I want my young grandchildren to look at me and say, Grandpa, you're strong, you're a strong man. So that's why, I feel sad, but I still trust in the Lord. And like my dad said, you have faith, son, you have faith. You always have your faith, will not forsake you. He said, like, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. You look at it like that, you'll be fine. He says, pray much, and you'll conquer whatever comes before you. And so with that advice, with my parents being Christians and stuff, that's helped me a lot. Yeah, I shed a few tears, but I can't reminisce and feel sorry for myself. I have to go be strong to help other families. And I think that's what the Lord is doing. I'm being a voice for other families to endure with this. Don't give up. You got to go on. You got to go on.
Well, from what I remember in my vacation Bible school, I understand that Jesus also cried.
Exactly.
Now, what kind of help have you found? Has the tribe, does it have a resource or a department or program to assist veterans who are suffering with PTSD?
As far as I know, I don't think we have a program in place. I would like for our new administration to maybe put something in for our PTSD to help our Vietnam vets and our Korean vets. Because we're losing so many of the World War II veterans every day, and I would like to see the help to have a program for our PTSD where we have a support group, especially with the combat veterans and stuff. Because if you talk to a combat veteran, they will not talk to you unless you've been in combat yourself, and
Right.
so. And I think that's what we need as far as in our trial. I know behavioral health tries to help our veterans, but being a non-veteran, there's not much they can say that a veteran will listen.
Yeah. Where do you go from here? I understand that you're sharing your story and serving as somewhat of an inspiration to others, or kind of a pathfinder, if you will, and trying to promote a recovery and dealing with the situation and getting past it. So where do you go from here, judging, with your family history and the loss that you and I guess so many others have had? What kinds of things are on your agenda for the future?
I still continue honor my father.
Your father, Philip Coon.
My father, Philip Coon, Baton Death March survivor, promoting his book, which is called A Soldier's Silent Prayer. And so they had big influence in my life, and my mother too, being of a Christian lady, and I would just like to continue on with their legacy and everything with the church people out there to know that, I never did lose that growing up. I always had my faith like they did and stuff, so I just never would relinquish that, because that's something strong that they instilled in me as a child growing up.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that. Philip. Michael, we want to thank you for coming in here. I know this was hard for you to kind of open up with us like this, so we do appreciate it. We hope that our Creator continues to look down and smile on you and give you strength.
No, I think he has and stuff, and it's just like every day I get up, I thank him for another day and another day that I can reach out and touch somebody. I know that my son has touched different people in their lives, and my son was the same way. When I went to his memorial in Fort Bliss, that I was amazed at how much of a true leader he was and everything in the service.
Oh, gosh, that's amazing.
Couple of phone numbers just to share. There is a suicide prevention lifeline, so if you or someone just need someone to talk to, you can call the number at 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-TALK. There's also a text line as well, and so you can text a live person for those of us that are younger. The text number is 838-255. And also, Michael's sharing with me right now, there's a website you can go to learn more about living with PTSD, warning signs and treatment options. It's www.dlptsd.org. You should be able to search and get a brochure and find out more information about post-traumatic stress disorder. I know in a lot of my research, Gary, we think that this only affects veterans, but PTSD also affects other individuals as well. It's after a traumatic event or incident and stuff like that. It can cause some real struggles there mentally.
Right, as Michael has told us here. Oh, gosh. What can we say after that? Well, let's go ahead. We'll take a short pause here, and we'll be back with some community announcements. So please stay with us here on Muscogee Radio.
I started doing it when I was 11. I wanted to be just like my big brother. And some of my friends were already doing it. We got hooked fast. I just can't get enough. I'm Jacob, and I'm addicted to playing the drums.
There's lots of stuff that makes it cool to be Native. Doing meth isn't one of them. Find something better to do. Check out ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
We've got a lot of things coming up during the upcoming holiday season, so let's see what we can do to help some folks out here. You're cordially invited to attend the third quarterly meeting of the Home Visiting Alliance, with the mission of enhancing home visitation services by connecting state, tribal, and community-based agencies to establish quality home-based programs. That's coming up on the 19th from 11 to 1. That's at the Muscogee Creek Nation Housing Building and second floor conference room. So if you're interested, please check it out. The 19th, 11 to 1, second floor, Muscogee Housing.
The Muscogee Creek Nation Cultural Center and Archives is putting up a 16-foot Christmas tree at the council house, and they're looking for traditional ornaments, bulbs, and other decorations. They're going to do a lighting ceremony on December 2nd at 6 p.m. With traditional hymn singing and light refreshments. If you want to donate an ornament or just interested in the event in general, call 918-732-7632.
Coming up this weekend, Saturday the 21st, Hickory Ground is having a bingo and food sale. That's 11 a.m. for the food sale to start and 1 p.m. for the bingo. And that will be held at the Dewar Community Center, Saturday the 21st, 11 a.m.
You can pick up angels for the annual Angel Tree gift donation. They're due back on December 1st. If you're interested in picking out an angel, call 918-732-7869.
The Reintegration Program presents Never Give Up, a docu-short about the Muscogee Creek Nation Reintegration Program. That's also being shown at the Smithsonian Museum, but if you don't feel like traveling to Washington, D.C., it is here on the 19th from 2 to 3 at the Muscogee Dome, and concessions will be available.
We've got another Movies in the Dome event on November 19th at 6:30 p.m. at the Muscogee Dome here in Okmulgee. They're showing Freebirds. It's free admission and concession is available.
The 2015 International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day is being held Saturday the 21st. That's from 9 to 1 p.m. at the College of the Muscogee Nation Student Success Center. So if you're interested, give those folks a call at Behavioral Services, 918-758-1930.
The Muscogee Creek Nation Reintegration Program is hosting their annual toy drive. You can place the toys at Dropbox locations around the area, including Henrietta, Okmulgee, Muscogee, and Eufaula. The final pickup for the toy drive will be December 14th, so get your toys donated in those boxes before then. For more information, call 918-652-2676.
If you're interested in participating in some music for the holidays, the Muscogee Youth Christmas Choir is being assembled and put together. You must be in the 5th grade to a senior in high school, Muscogee Creek citizen, willing to learn 3 to 5 Muscogee hymns and language. You've got to attend at least 2 to 3 practices at 7 p.m. First one coming up right here on the 18th at the Okemah Nutrition Center. Second one, December 2nd, with a location to be announced, and then on the 9th at the Okmulgee Mound Building. And you've got to commit to attending 2 to 3 Christmas performances. So if you're interested, Nancy Mason of the Muscogee Youth Services, please get a hold of them ASAP at 918-549-2557.
The LIHEAP for Muscogee Creek Nation has begun their heating utility assistance. Renewal applications, they will begin accepting them, well, looks like November 1st, and new applications, they'll begin accepting them January 1st. You can pick up an application at the Okmulgee office, the office in Wetumpka, and the Jinx office. For more information, call 918-549-2483.
Thanks for listening to Mvskoke Radio. This is Gary Fife.
Jessica McBride.
Maro Mabo Hedges good.